Current costs for institutional elder care at assisted living facilities and nursing homes range anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month. Yet 40% of elders today have no savings. The well-heeled may enjoy a gentle slide into their golden years, but what about the rest of us? The Maine Approach, a new model for building low-cost, community-based elder care, ahead on Wide Angle. My parents looked forward to living out their golden years in the Cape Cod house they had called home for over 2 decades. But my mother's unexpected stroke just over a year ago challenged that dream, leaving them and their 3 concerned but distant sons to speculate on what move should come next. Could we piece together care and thereby afford them the opportunity to remain at home? Or would their particular challenges be better served by a move to assisted living? Joining me from his home in Maine to discuss such universal quandaries is Dr. Alan Teel. Dr. Teal has over 3 decades of experience as a family physician in Damariscotta, Maine, and is author of the book Alone and Invisible No More: How Grassroots Community Action and 21st Century Technologies Can Empower Elders to Stay in Their Homes and Lead Healthier, Happier Lives. He is also the founder and president of Full Circle America, a national organization dedicated to helping elders safely remain in their homes. Welcome to Wide Angle, Dr. Teal.
Thank you so much, Peter.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's begin our conversation, if we can, at that point where your work diverges from sort of what's considered standard elder care in the United States today. Most Americans likely think, if they're pushed to, like my parents, as I spoke to in the introduction, they'll remain home until they die. Beyond that, if living at home becomes tenuous, we most probably think of assisted living facilities or nursing homes as our primary options. You offer a different option. You call it the Maine Approach. Please, in broad strokes, give us a sense of how this is different from what we typically experience today.
Sure. Well, as you point out, our default option is a residential care facility somewhere. Mm-hmm. And most of us understandably think that that would be the safest option. Sure. But for the most part, I think we miss the fact that it is also very sadly dangerous for folks to move into residential care facilities because for many older individuals, they know that we all think of it as very close to the end of the line. Mm-hmm. So they lose much purpose, much of focus on going forward and continuing to embrace a quality of life. Yeah. They think they're marking time. Right. And that's backed up by some pretty scary statistics that more than half of the people who move into a nursing home die within 3 to 6 months. Wow. And these are not folks that were on the brink of death when they moved in. Right. And so I think an awful lot of people are dying of broken hearts, and they're dying of a lack of purpose. What I've tried to do is focus on an approach to keep people in their own homes because that's where they say they want to be. Mm-hmm. And that involves creating a solution around what I call good old-fashioned neighborliness and technology. Okay. And the core elements are things that we all know about. They're what I call people, attitude, and technology. Yep. And the people part of it is that most of these older individuals that have lived for 80 or 90 or 100 years have quite an amazing circle of support that they've amassed over that time. Right. Some of them we don't think of as a support solution, but next door neighbors, hairdressers,
Mm-hmm.
The person that mows the lawn or takes our garbage out or delivers the mail. There are a number of people that cross paths with us every day. And if we think of those individuals as being part of our support solution, there are, even for the most isolated individuals, there are a number of people that they cross paths with,
Sure.
and they can probably help support the adult children.
Right. But maybe what we do is use a couple of real world illustrations, yeah, to give a sense as to how the Maine approach offers something different than what our parents, our grandparents, eventually ourselves may experience in an assisted living facility or a nursing home. First, and I think the examples would be different in terms of the level of care that would be necessary. But I think both are representative. The first illustration, I'll use my own and my family's. My mother, until a year ago, had been living with my father on the Cape, independent, able to do all of the things that she would imagine constitute a full life. Went into the hospital for a hip replacement, had a stroke. And cognitively, she was still there. So intellectually, she understood what was going on. She was able to do intellectually those things that she had been able to do before, which, thankfully, however, the left side of her body is now markedly different than it was. Very little use of her hand, her arm, able to walk with the assistance of a cane, but certainly moving around, getting around, very different. The ability to make meals, to zip zippers, very different than it had been. How does the Maine approach, and I should say, my father certainly able to help, but not able to do all of the things that she needs help with on a daily basis. How does the Maine approach help my parents and other people like them to remain home?
Sure. Well, the story that you've just described is not uncommon, and clearly the problem solving that one needs to do is to take a broad brush at how you would problem solve at that. And so you break down the steps that need to be done, and we all have issues that have to do with what are called the activities of daily living. And they are very simply, how do we dress, bathe, use the bathroom, feed ourselves, get from room to room, get in and out of the house, talk on the telephone, talk on a computer. How do we pay bills? What of those things? Now, if she's lucky enough to be right-handed,
she is.
then she has her dominant hand to go with.
That's right.
Since she has some use of both legs, even with a cane, she has a large advantage over somebody that can't walk. She has a very active mind, so she, depending upon whether she can find things to entertain her and enjoys reading, whether her voice is good enough to be able to communicate well. Your problem solving around how can I live as full a life as possible with my limitations.
Right.
And very much it is starting from the point of, kind of old-fashioned optimism, where you say the glass is half full rather than half empty.
Sure.
What does your mom still have going for her, rather than what are her limitations?
Sure.
And then trying to solve around her so she can't cook. She probably can stir soup. She probably can feed herself. She might have some trouble chopping up things. So she can press buttons to do microwaves, to prepare foods that have been pre-prepared or partially prepared for her. She can't handle some buttons and things, so she's going to have Velcro on her shoe ties rather than the same way we would with a younger child.
Right.
We will try to have some personal care attendant. And again, can we mimic what she would get in a residential care facility?
Right.
Now, personal care attendants that she would have in an assisted living home might be less than a half an hour personal time a day.
Right.
In a nursing home, she might have an hour and a half of personal time.
Right.
So can we provide her that kind of care in her own home?
Right. Right. And that would be seeking out professional help? Would it be volunteers? I know certainly volunteers are a cornerstone of the Maine Approach.
Sure. Well, it's been pretty hard to find volunteers that want to clean more toilets and scrub floors.
Sure.
So you're going to have to spend some money hiring a housekeeper. You're going to have to spend some money with somebody to supplement the things that your dad feels comfortable doing or not doing.
Right.
And sometimes it's no more than having to set up a shower day or two or time each day for your mom, and then just having an extra pair of hands in the house in case the unexpected happens.
Right.
So it is really about problem solving, getting into the specifics. And again, if you think of it, that the budget for an assisted living home is $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 a month, and the budget for a nursing home is $10,000, $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a month.
Yeah.
How much can you and your dad and mom budget to try to stay in their own homes?
Let's use another example, and I think it's the example that as an adult child, it scares us. Yes, the parent, the grandparent with memory issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, and beyond losing the keys or where did my glasses go, but being out in the world and forgetting how to get home, or waking up in the morning and not clear that they need to dress and have breakfast, and there's a doctor's appointment, by the way, this afternoon. Those sorts of things. My understanding is that the Maine Approach has helped people with memory issues remain at home, and I can hear in my mind's ear, I suppose, some medical professionals, some children saying, "Geez, Mom or Dad can't stay at home. It's not safe." How does it work that they may be able to remain at home?
Sure. Well, it's all about this dignity of risk. And if the loved one that you care so much about is going to feel like you gave up on them and they are going to stop eating or stop living in 3 to 6 months because of the decision you made, then how much is that safety worth?
Yeah.
Now, there are a number of people with physical or cognitive limitations who move into a residential care facility and get a social spark that we all love to see. Life was too hard where they were before.
Yeah.
I started a number of assisted living facilities and am still the chairman of the board of a group of 7 homes. I have nothing but admiration for all the people that work in residential care facilities. And if that is a choice that I could have gotten my father or somebody else to accept and go willingly, then it needs to be a very big part of the whole menu of elder care options. But if the choice is that that individual is going to feel like I've wash my hands of mom or dad, or that this was the option that they did not choose. And I saw a 92-year-old man the other day whose demented wife is in another floor of the same facility where he is. And he was really struggling with the idea. He's got a lot of arthritis, so he represents the physical side of the spectrum, and she represents the memory side of the spectrum. And he said, you know, they're nice here. This is a nice place, but it's just not home. And he's been there for several years, and he is resigned to the fact that he probably will need to stay here, but no one really gave him a chance to try to make something else work with support. And here we get, let me get to your question, though, about how do you handle someone with memory impairment? Like the other example we just talked about, it is about trying to problem solve around the specifics. If my memory impairment makes it so that I don't remember what I had for breakfast, or even if I ate breakfast, as long as somebody knows that I had breakfast, and I can do that in a lot of different ways, with remote video monitoring, with motion sensors, with caregivers, with plates that I can see in the in the sink. There are ways to do that, even if we have to sculpt the solution around what the individual specific problems are. Now, if I am somebody who tries to put my hearing aid in my mouth, and I am going to practice unsafe situations where I am going to take knives out of the drawer and rub them on my forearm, or I am going to wander out of the building every time you've got your back turned for 30 seconds, then those individuals are going to have a very hard time living without one-on-one care in their own home. But they still, if you have the ability to provide that, it still may be that some supplemental one-on-one care will be able to do it. Many people with profound Alzheimer's disease sleep 14, 16, 18 hours a day. Do I need a personal care attendant for those hours, or do I only need a personal care attendant for the day, for the hours that I'm awake? So we have deployed a lot of IP cameras, just like you and I are talking from 200 miles apart. So if I have a camera and it shows me where my loved one spends their time, and I can spot check that, and I have it so that it takes motion-driven snapshots when I move. I can spot check that 3 or 4 times a day for a few $100s a month, and maybe provide a reasonable solution when piggybacked with some personal care attendants.
You speak of the dignity of risk. Certainly, we live in a risk-averse society, and I think probably particularly where our elders are concerned. The Maine Approach features what you have referred to as the dignity of risk philosophy. So I guess in a nutshell, what is the dignity of risk philosophy, and how do you feel it actually comes to benefit our elders?
This is a phrase that I borrowed from the developmentally disabled community when they were trying to deinstitutionalize that group and move them into community. The people that advocated for this so-called risky venture were challenged, and they came back and said, if we're going to allow people to live a full life, we have to allow them to succeed or fail. And if we're not willing to accept that, we are depriving them of the full breadth of the human experience. And I've taken that into the elder world and said, That's the same thing when my dad says he wants to walk to the mailbox,
Yeah.
when he says he wants to sleep in his own bed in his own house,
Yeah.
and that we say, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. Something bad might happen to
Right.
you. And he says, I don't really care. Uh, this is my preference. I like it here.
Yeah.
And so we as advocates have to get used to to taking a little bit of risk on behalf of our loved ones, because they're living with risk and they're not worried about that risk.
Right. On that note, Alan, let's take a quick break and invite viewers to join us on the other side, where we'll discuss how we might build an organization that can help us truly support our elders.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Email us at wideangle@acmi.tv. For information about this episode or to view other Wide Angle episodes, visit us online at acmi.tv/wideangle.
Welcome back to Wide Angle. I'm Peter Bermuda, speaking today with Dr. Allan Teel about a model of elder care that enables and empowers elders to remain at home and at the same time strengthen our communities. There are a number of states involved where Full Circle America is helping, I gather, enable elders to remain in their homes. Do you sense that the model, however, can be replicated across the country, and particularly at this time, you certainly reference it in the book, where the baby boom generation is entering their golden years, and the numbers of people who are going to be needing help is staggering. So is this a model that could conceivably help embrace that group of people?
Well, you're talking to a firm believer that the answer is yes.
Okay.
Are there a lot of skeptics? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've shown that it can be done. It can't be done in isolation. All of the technology and neighbors work better when there is a professional service organization of some kind that you are working with.
Okay.
So whether that be an area agency on aging, whether that be a community outreach program from a church, whether it be, the reality is we built a platform that can accommodate millions of people.
Right.
The technology is inexpensive and widely deployable.
Right.
The solutions we have pioneered, the learning curve on how do you address the issues, and you picked out a couple of very challenging situations.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about folks with profound physical or cognitive impairments.
Sure.
So there are an awful lot of individuals who just need a little more transportation help,
Right.
who just need a little more socialization.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we connect the dots with people that are already in the community? The infrastructure is the internet.
Right.
You need to at least have broadband that can reach almost everywhere.
Right.
And in many, even rural states, it almost does.
Right.
And then again, we're not looking for the high-speed internet service that you need to do high-quality gaming.
Right.
Looking for some way that you and I can see each other and talk to each other.
Right.
To put it to the test, I've been doing some video house calls with 90 to 95-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using a platform very much like what we're using today to say, how do I do an orthopedic exam on you?
Wow.
How do I do a neurologic exam?
Yeah.
How do I address your anxiety and your depression?
Right.
And we've even been able to have Wi-Fi enabled stethoscopes,
Wow.
and other things. So with a courier who could bring that stethoscope to your house,
Right.
I can listen to your heart and lungs as well as doing your vital signs through these inexpensive devices that we deploy.
Right.
And then if we can collect that information and address that problem, can we do things that are way more convenient? And my 93-year-old poster girl for this is a patient of mine who, when I asked her whether this was almost as good as seeing me in the medical office, she said, "Oh no, dear, it's much better." Um, and I said, "Why was that?"
Yeah.
And she says, "Well, it was much more intimate. You and I were looking at each other face to face, and you weren't messing with that silly computer."
Interesting.
And so even though I might have had two screens open and a keyboard in front of me and
Right.
the internet was powering our conversation, for her, the only thing that was really important is that we were having a face-to-face discussion with nobody else interrupting us.
Right.
And that was the powerful piece of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's say, Alan, that there are viewers who are interested in finding out more about the Maine Approach, who potentially are interested in exploring, maybe setting up such a circumstance in their own community. Resources that they can go to find out more.
Sure. Look us up on the web. Give us a call on our 800 number.
Okay.
We have a tremendous breadth of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Are we a small organization? I'm sorry to say, after 10 years of doing this, we're still pretty darn small.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we have the ability to share the experiences not only of our journey, but also many other groups that we've crossed paths and rubbed shoulders with.
The book, Alone and Invisible No More, is a wonderful place to start as well. Alan, I thank you for joining me today, certainly, as well as for, well, it's decades of work and commitment and thinking about how we can best help our grandparents, our parents, our communities, and I suppose in the final analysis ourselves as well.
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes, this is something that I mentioned the poverty of older individuals. Well, sadly, many folks in our generation have saved a lot less than our parents did.
Mm-hmm.
And so these solutions, are they going to come from us banding together, from us working community by community?
Right.
Where's the philanthropy and the support going to come from?
Right.
Where are the solutions going to come from? And I look forward to being, I hope, half as interesting as these 85 to 100-year-olds that I've gotten to know over the last 25 years.
Sure. Well, I thank you and wish you certainly all of the best.
Nice to talk to you again, Peter.
Good to talk with you. In a society as heavily monetized as ours, it's little wonder that we equate quality care with the amount of money spent. And no doubt there is a relationship. But when the issue in question is the care of humans generally, and of our elders more particularly, the relationship is likely not so direct. Maybe other factors such as creativity, commitment, connection are at least as valuable, if not more so, than the dollar. And as we live longer and in greater numbers than ever before, there is a growing chorus rightfully demanding to be respected and enjoy a role in our communities. Today, perhaps, it is our grandparents and parents, but more than likely, on some not too distant day, it will be each one of us. On behalf of Dr. Alan Teel, I'm Peter Bermudez. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Wide Angle.